Good, good, good. Yeah, I don't need this. Hi everybody, my name's Mickey Bush and I'm a fully conceded alcoholic. That's fully conceded, not conceited, as you may understand probably later on. It's all right, it's like my dick. Very sick, very sick. Hey, my name's Mickey Bush. I'm an alcoholic. I'm in an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting. I know what's wrong with me and I know what to do about it. That's a lot of shit right there, and I never brought that in here with me on January the 15th, 1983. You know? I never came here with the only requirement for membership, the desire to quit drinking. I had no desire to quit drinking. I never knew I needed to. I never knew nothing about nothing. Why I do these workshops, especially predominantly 1, 2, and 3, is because of the foundation that we need to build a strong sobriety on. And if our foundation isn't rock solid, well, we all know what happens to anything we build on a shaky foundation, don't we? So, all afternoon they've had to prepare this.
We just wanted to see what you're doing with it.
All right, all right. You're not blocking them off from seeing me, are you? You're going to have something nice to look at. All right. Yeah, because one of the things that I'm totally convinced and knowledgeable about is the difference between sober and sobriety. You know, a lot of people don't seem to understand that. I know a lot of people in Alcoholics Anonymous who have a long time sober who don't have any sobriety. If you think that's a judgment, you're right. It is. You know, many, many times I have been physically sober in my entire life. Many times I have been physically sober, as sober as I stand before you tonight with 32 plus years. I have been sober many, many times in my life. I tried to count, for example, one time, my release states. Because every single time I was released from a joint, no matter what kind of a joint it was, I was as physically sober as I stand before you right now. Whether it was maximum security, minimum security, whether it was a nut board for the criminally insane, whether it was a jitter joint, whatever kind of joint it was, I was released from that as physically sober as I stand before you right now. I've been physically sober many, many times. Have I got to speak into it? Is that what you mean? Yeah. Okay. You know, S-O-B-E-R is how you spell sober. Son of a bitch, everything's real. Sobriety is S-O-B-R-I-E-T-Y. Staying off booze. Recovery is everything to you. And there's a total difference. Sober to me is like the middle ground between drinking and sobriety. Sober is better than drinking, but it's not as good as sobriety. And so that's what we're here to do. We give out chips and tokens and stuff for various lengths of time sober. We refer to them as sobriety chips, but they're not. They're sober chips. There's a total difference. And so I had to learn this, of course. But today, because of the huge failure rates in Alcoholics Anonymous, I try and do something about that. Because we have a huge failure rate in a program that we claim really works. And at the end of this meeting and many others that I attend, we usually form a circle and join hands and say a prayer. And then at the conclusion of that, we say various things amounting to the fact that, you know, it works if you work it, and keep coming back, it's worth it, and all that kind of stuff. Well, it does work. You're looking at living proof of that. But for a program that we claim really works to have such a huge failure rate, it's horrendous. So I try to do something about that. And what I try to do is try to be responsible for carrying this message. The message in the beautiful book, Alcoholics Anonymous, this beautiful book. See, there's no S on the end of path. It's not your path, my path, his path, their path, pick a bloody path. It's path. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. It's not your path, my path. People are walking around going, everybody's different, everybody does it their own way, and then a newcomer thinks that his way counts as well. You know? It's really funny, really. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are those who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. Usually women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with it. Oh, you are listening, huh? You are listening. That's why you're just listening. Men and women, of course. You know. So when I was, coming along the ranks, I asked a lot of questions. I used to drive people crazy. I wanted to know what things meant. Because when I got here, I had no idea about myself. I had no idea about being an alcoholic. I had no idea about alcoholism. I knew nothing about nothing. I was so sick when I got here that I didn't even know I was sick. See? Now that's really sick. When you're so sick that you don't know you're sick, that's really sick. And when you're so sick that you come into a gathering like this, a gathering of alkies, good alkies seems to me, and you scan the room and you think, well, I'm not as sick as him. Do you know how sick that is? That's really sick. So if you're here today wondering whether you is or whether you isn't a real alcoholic or not, I want you to know that I can relate to being as sick as you don't think you are. You know, really sick, and I never knew. But I found out. I found out since coming to Alcoholics Anonymous. I found out what the solution was. SOLUTIONS, saving our lives using the inventory or needed steps. And I found the solution to the problem. I knew, and now I found out what the problem was, like Bill. Bill knew what the solution was before he knew what the problem was. Dr. Silkworth initiated him with the problem, and then he got Dr. Bob, which is a program of action, the threefold. So, I started asking people what certain things meant. Because in the beautiful book, Alcoholics Anonymous, I identified as a fully conceded alcoholic. It's on page 30 if you're interested. We learned we had to fully concede to our innermost self that we were alcoholic. This is the first step in recovery. It's the first step in recovery, but it is not the first of the 12 steps, though often confused. A lot of people confuse the first step in recovery. I call it the step before the steps. We learned we had to fully concede to our innermost self that we were alcoholic. This is the first step in recovery. The delusion that we are like other people or presently maybe has to be smashed. So it had to be done. It had to be done, and it has to be done. We had to do it, and it has to be done. There's nothing suggestive only about that, my friends. I know we hear suggestive only. No, there's not. And the difference between fully conceding to my innermost self, one of the things is that that's what's in the program. But in my meetings, I don't hear a lot of people talking about fully conceding because they're all talking about admittance, acceptance, and surrender. Now, admittance, acceptance, and surrender isn't mentioned in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. But that's what I'm hearing in my meetings. And because people are talking about admittance, acceptance, and surrender, which ain't in the program, they ain't talking about fully conceding, which is. So we're not passing on this message. The other chronic part about that is that when we fully concede to our innermost self that we're alcoholic, there's some learning that takes place there. We learned we had to. Now, I don't hear a lot of people say, I want to learn, can you help me, will you teach me, and I'll do what you do and come and be a small part of this great whole, because everybody seems to know everything. The most common thing I hear all the time is, I know. Especially from those folks that have been around here and relapsed and come back. You know? And people relapse stone cold sober. Stone cold sober, we're capable of insane thoughts followed by insane actions. Everybody who relapses does that stone cold sober. You know? And they come back and they all know everything. I know, followed by yeah, but. I know, yeah, but, I know, yeah, but, I know, yeah, but. The mating call of arseholes, you know. It don't say I know, yeah, but it says we learn. And we have to learn from the people that have gone before us doing this deal. And we learned we had to fully concede to our innermost self. What did that mean, to fully concede to my innermost self? Admittance, acceptance, and surrender. See, that's a choice or a preference. You know, and that doesn't have the weight needed. Admittance, acceptance, and surrender is like a prelude to fully conceding, but it's not fully conceding, and it doesn't have the same power. One of the things that's obvious about fully conceding, as opposed to admittance, acceptance, and surrender, is two things that I learned here. When we fully concede to our innermost self that we're alcoholic, I'm no longer relying on memory or knowledge. I hear a lot of people talk about, I'm not going to drink again. I remember what happened last time. And they're relying on memory. I'm not going to drink again. I know what would happen if I did. We're going to rely on our knowledge. Well, guess what? What we know changes and my memory fades. So if I'm relying on knowledge and memory and it fades or changes, I'm screwed. But when I'm fully conceded to my innermost self, it's all the way to the stone. My friends in Pink Floyd wrote us about it. You know, fully conceded to my innermost self. But I'm alcoholic. Well, what did that mean? See, I didn't even know I was alcoholic. I was so sick I didn't know I was alcoholic. Now I've got to tell you, I'm not an idiot. I'm smart. I'm not just good looking. I'm smart. You know, I've got creds. I've got street creds. I've got academics. I've got a PhD, for heaven's sake. Pretty heavy drinker. But I was so smart, I didn't even know I was dying of a disease I didn't even know I had. I don't even care if you don't believe it's a disease. Every known medical association in the world recognises alcoholism as a disease. So if you don't think it's a disease, too bad. You don't count where I'm concerned. Every known medical association is a little bit more powerful than your decision to decide it ain't a disease. A disease of disease. And I didn't know that, but I do today, I learned. So if I've got to learn to fully concede to my innermost self, and I don't know what it is about me that makes me alcoholic, how can I do that? And if I can't do that and it's my first step in recovery, I'm screwed. I'm not going to build a solid foundation. But I found out, and I went around and I asked. And I asked folk who was at the first meetings that I went to. Because at the very first meeting that I went to, a guy got up in my face and said, "You're an alcoholic." I said, "What?" He said, "You're an alcoholic." I said, "That's a bloody mean thing to say to somebody, that is. Say a mean thing like that to somebody for." He said, "You're alcoholic." I said, "Why did you say that?" He said, "Because it looks like a duck and walks like a duck and sounds like a duck and smells like a duck, it's a bloody duck. Just because he's been taking some shit and thinks he's an eagle, no, you're a duck. You're a duck, I'm a duck." Quack, quack, he went. Bloody hell, this is the bloody funny farm, man. Guys loving on you and shit, and ducks and eagles and shit. Wow. What he was actually doing was breaking through the barrier of denial that I had up, that I didn't even know I had up. But I do today. I wrote words to the effect denial. D-E-N-I-A-L. Don't even notice I am lying. Or don't even notice it's a lie. I don't notice when I'm lying, and I don't notice when I'm being lied to, especially by a disease that tells me I ain't got it. You all know about the voices that talk to you, right? Who relates to the voices? Yeah, no shit. You know the voices I'm talking about. Them voices that just said, "What voices?" Them voices. You know them voices? Drive you crazy, them voices. Anyway, you're an alcoholic. Wow, what does that mean? So I went around asking people, what does it mean to be alcoholic? What is it about me that makes me alcoholic? People didn't know. Maybe you don't know. Maybe you don't know but think you do know. That's very dangerous. It's one thing if you don't know it, but if you don't know it but think you do, that's very dangerous. I went around and asked, what is it about me that makes me alcoholic? Well, once you put a drink in your body, oh, is that what it means? Well, what is it about me that makes me alcoholic? One's too many and 1,000 ain't enough. Once you start, you can't stop. You can't stop from starting. You know, your life's into... See, and they didn't know. They didn't know what it was about them that made them alcoholic. They knew what they did because they were alcoholic. They knew the consequences and the results of being alcoholic. They knew what happened, and they could all say they was alcoholic. But that wasn't an answer to the question. The question was, what is it about me that makes me alcoholic? What is it about me that differentiates me from my 3 sisters and brother? What is it about us alcoholics that differentiates us from our other non-friends? You know, I was raised an only child in a family of 5 children. I got 3 sisters and a brother, not alcoholic. They don't know why I drink. I don't know why they don't. I ask them why don't you drink. They say I don't like it. Or I say, what don't you like about it? They say, well, if I have one too many, I feel sick. I say, sick? You've got to drink past that. I mean, who's got sick? They don't laugh. They think I'm weird. Any other weirdos here today? Yeah, and the rest of you lying mothers. I know weirdos. You know, I wanted to know what it was about me that made me alcoholic, because I didn't know. I knew what I did because I was alcoholic. I knew the trouble I got into as a result of my drink. I knew the consequences and the results of being alcoholic. But I didn't know what it was about me that made me alcoholic. And if I got to fully conceive to my innermost self that I am, I want to know what it is. And I went around asking you guys, and you guys didn't tell me because you solely didn't know. And it's essential. It's one of the reasons that I'm taking the time to dwell on this now. What it is about me that makes me alcoholic isn't what I do because I'm alcoholic. What makes me alcoholic is the duck and the eagle story. You know, I go out drinking as a delicate little duck. I have a few stiff ones and turn into an eagle and go swooping around looking for prey. And that's not P-R-A-Y either. Mary in my own group puts it as well as I've ever heard anybody put it. She's a delicate little dudette, is Mary. Wow, strong is Mary. She says when she drinks, she feels wittier, prettier, and tiddier. Yeah. And I know exactly what she means. Yeah. It changes my perception of reality. Now I know everybody in the room knew that, unless I'd asked you first. Alcohol changes my perception of reality. It doesn't change reality, it changes my perception of reality. It changes me from a duck to an eagle. I found that in the doctor's opinion in the beautiful book, Alcoholics Anonymous. I read in the doctor's opinion, he describes the disease very adequately, especially about the obsession of the mind and the phenomenon of craving. Very, very precious writing. But he says in the book, men and women drink primarily because they like the effect produced by alcohol. I can dig that. Men and women, not alcoholic men and women, just men and women, like the effect produced by alcohol. Well, what was the effect produced by alcohol? What the effect produced by alcohol was that it changed how I felt. Alcohol changed how I felt. A lot of alcoholics say that. A lot of alcoholics said they couldn't stand how they felt, and they this and that and that and this, and when they drank it was the solution. Alcohol changed how I felt. Does that for everybody. All over this town tonight, Lincoln, they'll be going out Friday night, they'll have a couple of drinks and it'll change, give them a little buzz and they'll get a buzz going and they'll enjoy themselves. But it won't change their perception of reality, it'll change how they felt. Now for us, when we carry on drinking and drink past what we call an invisible line, cross over what we call the invisible line, now the rules have changed. Now alcohol is changing how I felt, but now I'm drinking into alcoholism. With alcoholism in the doctor's opinion, changed my perception of reality. It changed me from restless, irritable and discontent to a sense of ease and comfort. that I get from taking a couple of drinks they see other people taking with impunity. My three sisters and brother can drink with impunity. You know, once in a while they like a drink, once in a while they get drunk. But come Monday morning, they take their kids to school, take care of their bills, and take care of their responsibilities. They don't end up in detox with me. You know. See, alcohol changes how I feel. Alcoholism changes my perception of reality. Alcoholics Anonymous changes my perception to reality. I don't like reality. Screw reality. That's going to be another part of my explanation about the first of the 12 steps. See, we learned we had to fully conceive to my innermost self that was alcoholic. This is the first step in recovery. We have to have a reason for being here. And on page 20 of the beautiful book, 10 pages earlier, it said, if you are an alcoholic who wants to get over it, you may already be asking, what do I have to do? Well, when the troops ask me what do I have to do, I tell them 12 spiritual steps of Alcoholics Anonymous, starting with step 1. So admitting I'm alcoholic is not step 1, and nowhere in step 1 does it say anything about admitting we're alcoholic. Step 1 of the 12 steps is a totally different step to admitting we're alcoholic. We're going to deal with that very in great depth. So we learned we had to fully conceive to our innermost self. What is my innermost self? I like the explanation that a good friend of mine uses. He says, the core of my being. I say to them, my gut level honesty. That place 2 inches behind my belly button that only me and Gus, G-U-S, the guy upstairs, you know, me and him go there together. We can be there together. To my gut level honesty, the core of my being. I fully conceive it to the core of my being. I'm alcoholic, that cannot be removed, cannot be argued with or debated. It's a done deal. I'm alcoholic, and I now know what's wrong with me, which I never knew when I came here. Okay, let's see. Well, what am I going to do about it then? Well, first of the 12 steps. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives would become unmanageable. It's a funny old thing, that. It's written in the past tense. We admitted we were powerless and my life had become unmanageable. Not that I am powerless and it is unmanageable. Kind of strange that, isn't it? I was hopeless, helpless and powerless. So were you. I got another little twist that I put on that. Think about it. You can have a bit of fun with your sponsor or maybe your sponsees with this one. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. Guess what? We've never done that. We in Alcoholics Anonymous have never done that because it ain't true. We admitted we were powerless. We've never done that. We have never admitted that we were powerless because we ain't. We are a power so strong we can resist the obsession to drink. You was powerless, I was powerless, but we ain't powerless. The great remedy of Alcoholics Anonymous is one alcoholic relating to another. Me plus you was a power greater than me. You plus us is a power greater than you. Together we could do what I couldn't do alone. You couldn't stay sober, I couldn't stay sober, but together we can stay sober. Me plus you is a power greater than me. You plus us is a power greater than you. And in some of those incarcerations that I was in, I remember reading in the Bible. I like the Bible, B-I-B-L-E, being informed before leaving earth. I like the Bible. And in there it said, when any two are gathered in my name, there I will be in your midst. And I went, wow, that's what we do in Alcoholics Anonymous. Two alkies come together for the purpose of recovery, the third factor. God comes in our midst and produces a power greater than either of us. So it's produced by us, but it's greater than us, and we can absolutely depend upon it to not have to drink today. Wow. Wow. 1 and 1 makes 3. That was cool. I like that. So we ain't powerless. We are a power so strong we can resist the obsession to drink. Now I'm told that there's likely to be 450, 500 folks showing up this weekend. Going to show up, have a good time, celebrate recovery in a convention in Lincoln, Nebraska. Wow. Don't know Lincoln very well. But if there's going to be 400 drunks, they better have a power greater than themselves that they can depend on to take out there to Lincoln, Nebraska, mustn't they? If we really do suffer from a disease that we're powerless over and makes me do what I already don't want to do, and I can't not do it because I don't want to, because it's more powerful than my choice not to do it. If I haven't got a power in here that I can take out there, we'll have to go and get drunk. Because the disease I got will make me get drunk. So I must have a power here, mustn't I? You know, if we were all powerless over alcohol, didn't have a power that we could take out there, we all got drunk. I've got a feeling Lincoln ain't ready for 500 drunks to go out and get shit-faced tonight. So why do we walk around claiming we're powerless? We do. I don't know why. To me, it sounds like the disease getting me to deny the power that's in my life. I got so much power over alcohol, I don't know what to do with it, for crying out loud. In and of myself, I was helpless, hopeless and powerless, as you were, but I ain't in and of myself anymore. Wow. In one of my houses down there in San Fernando Valley, I got two parrots, a blue one and a green one. Bill and Bob is their name. And I've trained them to speak, and you can stand very close to the cage quietly, and all of a sudden they go, alcoholic, alcoholic, powerless, powerless. They're bloody parrots is what they are, but they can say they're alcoholic and powerless. And I didn't want to be a parrot walking around here quoting shit that I didn't understand and didn't know about just because it sounded glib or whatever. I didn't want to be a parrot, so I wanted to learn. I did. I went round asking. I went round asking a heck of a lot. You know, I wanted to know what powerless over alcohol meant. Where I came from in northwest London, because I'm from northwest London, you probably picked up on that, right? This is the way I speak. You know, alcohol didn't do this to me. I mean, I'm a limey, lush and roady, and, you know, where I come from, everybody drinks. Don't know why we drink, everybody just drinks. Never had a reason to drink, never had a reason not to drink. Everybody just drank. We drank if the team won, we drank if the team lost. If it was a tie, we drank till there was a result. We just drank. I come in here, all you folk know why you're doing it. I've heard you folk talking about why you drank. You drank because you couldn't stand the pain, you couldn't stand who you are, you were hiding behind, and you had all these issues, past the tissues, I got issues. You know, and I thought, at what stage of the game did you discover that? I can't even imagine that, me. I cannot imagine going up to any bartender in the pubs I drank at and saying, bartender, hit me with a triple shot of your best booze, because I can't stand who I am and I want to cover up the pain tonight. It never happened. Oh, Mr. Dealer Man, give me an extra rock of crack cocaine, because I really feel inadequate. You know. Never happened. Never happened. I have no idea why I do what I do, but I started asking and I learned here. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. Unmanageability is the thinking side of the twofold disease that the doctor mentions in the doctor's opinion. Twofold disease, obsession of the mind, allergy of the body. Obsession of the mind is a thought to the exclusion of all else, including recovery. The obsession sucks me in, takes away my ability to say no, so that then I have to say yes, so that when I do say yes, I think I chose to or wanted to, but I didn't. Once I take the first drink, people say the first drink gets you drunk. No, it don't. That's a lie. The first drink don't get you drunk. What the first drink damage does is it sets off what we call a phenomenon of craving. The craving is a feeling beyond my mental control. So I can't stop from doing it because of the obsession, and once I'm doing it, I can't stop doing it because of the phenomenon of craving. So I can't stop from doing it, and once I'm doing it, I can't stop doing it. You think I knew that shit when I got here? Never had a clue. Never knew nothing about nothing. And I never knew I had a disease that was making me do what I already didn't want to do, even if I didn't want to do it. The disease would make me do it. That's why in the beautiful book, Alcoholics Anonymous, crushed by a self-imposed crisis, I don't go along with that. We got a disease called untreated alcoholism that makes me do it. It makes me do it even when I don't want to do it. That's why I have to do these steps and this work, so that I don't do what I already don't want to do. Because this disease I got that's coming battling and powerful is more powerful than my choice not to do it. You see, so I've got to do these steps in this work so that I don't do what I already don't want to do. And if I ain't doing these steps in this work or ain't done these steps in this work, I will do what I don't want to do, because the disease I got that I'm powerless over will make me do what I don't want to do. You think I knew that shit? Never had a clue. Anybody ever said, I ain't going to drink no more, I'm never going to touch that shit again, and end up drunk? Who did that? Yeah, no shit. You think that was just a choice? No. Something wrong with us. I wanted to know what that was. Untreated alcoholism. I never knew that. Where would I know that from? What would I could work it out myself? I couldn't work that out myself. I needed the help that you guys taught me about. We admitted we were powerless. Powerlessness is the physical side of the twofold disease. Unmanageability is the mental side. The mental side is I can't sit down at a desk and manage my affairs, pay my bills, get the laundry done, get the car out the shop, pay my child support. I used to do all that in a nightmare. I used to do that 10 times better than the average bear and still do a better job than them and earn more money. Now I'm a day late and $1 short. Now I don't know how to manage my affairs. Unmanageability. I'm screwed. Now, what happened on January the 15th, 1983, a couple of things happened that I didn't know at the time was happening. Everything I say up here tonight, it's not just my opinion, by the way. I don't agree with that. I look in the beautiful book about opinion, strength and hope. It doesn't say anything about opinion, strength and hope. I know you get speakers up who say, everything you hear from me is strictly my own opinion. I say, screw you and screw your opinion. You know, because it's a lie anyway, because invariably it's not their opinion, it's their experience. But because it's lip-clapping party line bullshit that you hear in meetings and you're supposed to say something like that, you know, they repeat it. But anyway, I went off on a tangent, man. You know, we admitted we were powerless. What did it mean to be powerless? Two things happened on January the 15th, 1983. Everything I know about myself is all in retrospect. I never brought any of this in here with me. I never had a clue. I knew nothing about nothing. Everything I know about myself, about alcoholism, about alcohol, about the disease, about recovery, is all in retrospect. So if you're new around here or returning, I want to encourage you to keep coming back. Because, you know, that's what you told me, and I did. I kept coming back, and more was revealed. And today I do know. I know what's wrong with me, and I know what to do about it. And I never knew that when I got here. January 15, 1983, two things happened that I didn't know about at the time. One was hitting bottom. Hitting bottom's not mentioned in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. I don't know whether you realise that. Anybody read this book, by the way? It's a good idea if you're alcoholic, read the book, you know. I mean, hitting bottom's not mentioned in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. HITBOTTOM. Hurting inside, totally burnt out, turn to our master. I didn't know this disease has gotten me to turn away from the master. And by the way, the beautiful book says he can choose any concept of God he likes, provided it makes sense to him. That's a condition. This book that says of itself, our book is meant to be suggestive only. May have bloody well meant to be suggestive only, but it ain't. It's got clear-cut, precise instructions, directions, and rules to follow. He can choose any concept of God he likes, provided it makes sense to him. So if you've got something that makes sense to you, and anything is good, if it makes sense to you, it ain't got to make sense to me. But don't say it makes sense to you, and when somebody asks what sense it makes to you, you go, I don't know, what do you mean? And act like a nerd, you know. Anyway, whatever you've got that makes sense to you is okay by us. That's why this power that we have in rooms like this works for all alcoholics, be them atheists, agnostics, Jews, Catholics, Hindus, Muslims, whatever you are, big, small, black, white, man, woman, up, down, in, out, round, round. If you be alcoholic, this power works. Works good for alcoholics. On January the 15th, 1983, I hit bottom. Didn't know about it at the time. The second thing was alcohol and drugs had stopped working. Alcohol and drugs had stopped turning me from a duck to an eagle. I didn't know it was doing that. Alcohol and drugs had stopped working. People are confused about that. They think alcohol and drugs stopped working means that they didn't get them drunk or get them high. I spoke to a guy yesterday.
Feed volume.
I said, what happened? He said, well, I got drunk and went into a blackout and got locked up. I said, that's not alcohol stop working, that's alcohol working. Yeah. But he didn't understand it, see, so I had to explain to him what alcohol working in a life meant. And I didn't know on January the 15th, 1983, when you explained it to me. Alcohol stopping working isn't that it don't get me drunk, it still gets me drunk, it still rots my liver, it still gets me locked up. But what it stops doing is changing my perception of reality. But I can't stop from doing it because I've become addicted to it, being alcoholic, and it's got me by the short ones and just reels me in like a fish any time it wants me to drink. See, I can't stop from doing it, and it's not doing its job. It's not changing my perception of reality to allow me to be in this rotten world with you rotten people doing rotten shit that I can't stand. Alcohol is no longer the buffer between me and you and this rotten world with rotten people doing rotten shit. And I hate it. And it's not doing its job. And I never even knew it was doing a job. All those years. Because for a long, long time, alcohol and drugs was great. I know I hear in our meetings people say, I wouldn't swap my worst day sober for the best day drinking. I think, shit, I don't know where you drank. You know, I had a lot of great times for a long time. It was great. Alcohol and drugs was great. I mean, we robbed and lied and cheated and screwed our way around the planet a couple of times, drinking and drugging. It was great. Then it weren't so great, but it weren't bad. Then it kind of got bad, but not real bad. And then it kind of got real bad, but not as bad as you. And then it got as bad as you, but not as bad as I'd seen it. And then it got as bad as I'd seen it. Then it got January 15th, 1983. And I'm screwed. I don't know what you brought to recovery, but what I brought to recovery was a lot of hurt and hate. Hurt and hate, that's what I brought here. Like page 62 and other places talk about. Hurt and hate. I hurt and I hate everything. I hate women. I can't stand women. I hate homos and queers and anybody different. I hate black people. I'm totally racist and prejudiced. I'm from London, England, living in Los Angeles, and I hate foreigners. I can't stand me. I hate you and get away from me. Don't come near me. And with all that torment going on inside, I still have to try and present to you a picture of somebody you will like. Because maybe your higher powers what people think of you. If you don't like me, I'm screwed. And the book says we like to present the picture that we want people to think of, as opposed to the truth. And alcohol and drugs isn't making it okay for that to happen anymore. And I'm screwed. And I hit bottom. Now, I hear in our meeting people talk about hitting bottom as being different for everybody. Better not be different. There's no unity in being different. But that's what we say in our meetings. And I went round asking people, what do you mean hit bottom? What does hitting bottom mean? It's not in the program. In the program, there's no mention of hitting bottom. Well, where do I find out about this? What's hitting bottom? Wow, I didn't know. I went round asking. I went around asking you folk. And you folk told me things like, I ended up destitute, broke, busted, disgusted, and not to be trusted. You know, lost my family, lost my job, living in an abandoned car. And you told me about those outside circumstances and conditions your life was in at the tail end of your drinking. And mine wasn't like that. And that is probably what they meant by being different. See, the outside circumstances and conditions of our life is not what hitting bottom is. That may be different, but those outside circumstances and conditions of our life sometimes enable us to become capable of hitting bottom, but in and of themselves, they're not the bottom. We think, believe, and say they are, because materialistically we think in terms of, you know, what we lost and everything else. But those outside circumstances and conditions of our life is not. And the danger of believing that those outside circumstances and conditions of our life is the bottom is that as those outside circumstances and conditions get better and improve, we falsely believe we've gotten better and improved and drink again. You'd be amazed at what people tell me their bottoms are. Maybe you want to have a listen to your own. There's one little couple that I work with. I'm very fond of this little couple. They love being clean and sober. They work hard at it. I said to the little chickadee, I said, in the 12 and 12, this beautiful 12 and 12, in the very first step, Bill insists that every alcoholic must hit bottom first. Now, he didn't write anything about it in the program, but in the beautiful 12 and 12, more got revealed to him. So in the 12 and 12, in the very first step, he says, we insist that every alcoholic must hit bottom first. Well, think about that. That's some ballsy crap to say to a bunch of drunks, isn't it? Drunks who don't like authoritative figures and being told what to do, maybe like I'm sounding up here now. Hit bottom on this, brother mucker, you know. But that's how important it is. I said to this little chickadee, have you hit bottom? Bill says we must hit bottom first. She said, yes, Mick, I've hit bottom. I said, I'm curious, tell me about it. She said, it's easy, Mick. I was feet to the curb, hustling the Broadway, prostituting myself, trying to earn $1 so that I could get loaded. I said, that wasn't your bottom, love. She said, I think it was. I said, I don't give a shit what you think. I asked her, dude. I said, have you hit bottom, pal? He said, yes, Mick, I've hit bottom. I said, tell me about it. He said, it's easy, Mick. He said, I was locked up in a penitentiary, married to Bubba. I said, that wasn't your bottom. He said, it felt like it was. They got bad minds, I'm telling you, bad minds. See, hitting bottom is an inside job, not an outside circumstance. And that's the same for all of us. And it's what happened to me on January the 15th, 1983. I'm blessed and grateful to have had the gift of desperation. Just happens to spell gift of desperation, G-O-D. I didn't know that I was an alcoholic in the depth of the darkness of the disease. And I was in so much hurt and hate. Without knowing what I was saying, without knowing who I was saying it to, and without knowing what the circumstances were going to be. I can remember in desperation and despair going, help me, please help me, what's wrong with me? And ask for help from outside of myself. ASK, Ask Saving Kit. Help, H-E-L-P, His ever-loving presence. And although this disease has gotten me to abandon God, God hadn't abandoned me. And when I turned back to him and asked for help, he seemed to be looking over my shoulder and he seemed to say, Mick, you silly bugger, I've been waiting for you to ask. Now get yourself over that 12-step fellowship. Sent me to you. I asked for help and he sent me to you. Because here was the power that he provided for an alky of my kind, your kind, our kind, to not have to drink today. Now, I didn't know this disease had rendered me powerless. I didn't know. I asked people, what does it mean to be powerless? They told me all the consequences of what happened to them as a result of being powerless, but not what powerless is. But think about it. Powerless. Lack of power was our dilemma. I never wrote this acronym, EGO. I get credit for it, but I never wrote it. EGO, edging God out. Well, if you're edging God out or have edged God out, what state are you in? Does powerless ring a bell? If I've been edging God out, and he's the source and he's the power over everything, and he either is or he isn't, if I'm edging God out, I'm in a state of powerlessness. Lack of power was our dilemma. In the beautiful book, it said, remember we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, and powerful. Wow. Goes on to say, there's one who has all power, that one is God. May you find him now. Well, if I got to find him, it means I ain't got him. And if he's the source and he's the power over everything, and I'm powerless, where alcohol's concerned, it means I'm godless. I didn't realise that. Whatever form of God you believe in, you ain't got it when you get here. How come? Well, how come? Cunning, baffling, and powerful? One who has all power. Wait a minute, that didn't jive. I couldn't kind of grasp that. Does that mean that God's got all the power except the power that the disease has got? I couldn't get along with that. But of course the answer was very simple. God had all the positive power. The disease had the negative power. And long before I got here, long before the onset of untreated alcoholism, long before I get to Alcoholics Anonymous, the disease has been getting me to abandon God and spirituality, so that along the path of life, sometimes quickly and sometimes slowly, the disease gets me to abandon God and spirituality so that it can become the power in my life, dictating and dominating everything I say, do, think and feel. And in and of myself, I'm helpless, hopeless and powerless to resistance to Mark, and have to do what it wants me to do, which is drink. The disease is the negative power, God is the positive power, and it's gotten me to turn away from the positive power so that it, the negative power, becomes the power in my life, and I'm screwed. I love the beautiful book Alcoholics Anonymous. In the beautiful book, my favourite page. Page 386 of the 4th edition. Why I was so specific about the 4th edition. From a story called Me an Alcoholic. I looked up an AA meeting and went there alone. Here I found an ingredient that had been lacking in any other effort I'd made to save myself. Here was power. Here was power to live to the end of any given day. Power to have the courage to face the next day. Power to have friends. Power to help people. Power to be sane. Power to stay sober. That was 7 years ago and many AA meetings ago, and I haven't had a drink during those 7 years. Moreover, I'm deeply convinced that so long as I continue to strive in my bumbling way towards the principles I first encountered in the earlier chapters of this book, this remarkable power will continue to flow through me. What is this power? With my AA friends, all I can say is that it's a power greater than myself. If pressed, all I can do is follow the psalmist who said it long before me. Be still and know that I am God. That's good shit, isn't it? Power, power, power. Right here, right now. Right in this very room, right now, is a power greater than myself. That if I come and join you and do the simple, basic things that you guys taught me about, I won't have to drink today. Number one reason for relapse. People stop coming here. When I stop coming here, I revert back to self. In and of myself, I'm helpless, hopeless and powerless. But I'm not in and of myself when I'm here with you, being a small part of this great whole, doing simple things for my recovery. You know, getting a home group, getting a sponsor, taking commitments, putting a coin in the 7th edition, doing the simple basic things that you guys taught me about that I never knew I was learning. I had no idea that I was learning, I had no idea that I was powerless. But I ain't powerless today, I'm right here with you. Second step, came to believe that a power greater than myself could restore me to sanity. Well, I'm certified insane in 4 different countries. But they didn't give me the definition of insanity that you guys gave me. Whatever the legal definition or the dictionary definition may or may not be for insanity, what seems to work for us in recovery is that old saying, repeating the same behaviour and expecting a different result. Drinking. Albert Einstein never wrote that, by the way. He was given credit for it, but it wasn't Albert. I wish I'd wrote that. That made perfect sense to me. I can promise you not once did they ever come and grab my ass in their white coats and say, we're locking you up for repeating the same behaviour and expecting a different result. They didn't say that. You guys said that, and it went to the top. Wow. They knew how to lock me away. They knew how to chain me to padded cells. They knew how to brutalise me. They knew how to bash me up. They knew how to hurt me. They knew how to shoot me up with tranks and zap me on electric machines. But they didn't know what was wrong with me. And they certainly didn't know how to treat it. You guys did. Repeating the same behaviour and expecting a different result. Drinking. Well, here was a power that if I came and joined you and did the simple basic things that you guys teach wet alcoholics like me to do, I won't have to drink and I can stay sober. So if I come and join you and become a small part of this great whole, I won't have to drink. Well, if insanity is repeating the same behaviour and expecting a different result, drinking, to be restored to sanity means not drinking. So in a little twist on that little phrase, if I come and join you and do what you do and become a small part of Alcoholics Anonymous, I won't have to drink. Step 2. Wow. Wow. How simple was that? Powerless was I had no power, God, and the power that I grew up with because I was raised in a religion. I know all about God, Jesus, Buddha, Allah, Muhammad, and any other noun you want to make. Today, I work with 2 nuns, 2 priests, a rabbi, and a Sikh, dedicated their lives to the service of God and mankind. Couldn't say sober. Because that power wasn't in their life where alcohol was concerned. Remember, we're dealing with alcohol, singleness of purpose, and in my case, drugs. But I just throw that in there as a little make-way. Drugs, drugs, devil's revenge upon God's subjects. You see, I always drank the drug alcohol, but I didn't only do it. I did lots of other drugs too. Maybe I'll tell you some of that stuff when I speak on Saturday night. So here we are, step 1. We admitted we were powerless. Well, I've learnt what powerless means. That a life had become unmanageable. Wow, unmanageable was that I couldn't sit at a desk and manage my affairs. My life wasn't out of manageable. You know, it was a day late and $1 short. I was powerless over alcohol because I had no power in my life where alcohol was concerned. Now I do. I turn back to God and ask for help. He sent me to you. Here's a 12-step spiritual fellowship, Alcoholics Anonymous. Alcoholics Anonymous. Holy shit. Look what Alcoholics Anonymous says. ALCOHOLICS. Alcoholics. ANONYMOUS. Alcoholics Anonymous. A life centered on helping others lives in complete sobriety. Actions, not our names, yield maintenance of unity and service. Wow. See, that's good shit, isn't it? Yeah. So I turned back to God and asked for help. He sent me to you, Alcoholics Anonymous. You introduced me to a big book, BIGBOOK. Believing in God beats your old knowledge. In the beautiful book was a program, PROGRAM. People relying on God, relaying a message. Holy shit. Message, MESSAGE. Me, step, sponsoring God every day. Wow. Wow. Well, where do I get this from? You get to ask a sponsor. What? What's a sponsor? SPONSOR. Sober person offering newcomers suggestions on recovery. Well, what shall I ask him? What's in the book? Well, what's in the book? The program, 12-step program. Steps? What do you mean steps? STEPS, solution to every problem sober. Wow. Holy shit. Have I got to do steps? Yes. Because if you want to quit drinking and don't replace your drinking with a sufficient substitute, the steps, you go crazy, you go nuts. What do you mean nuts? NUTS, not using the steps. You know? Oh no, you're nuts. You know, there's an old saying around here, when you relapse, you know, there's no greater pain for somebody who relapses and has a belly full of booze and a head full of AA. I'll give you worse pain than that. You stick around this room and get sober and get a sober belly without a head full of AA. And you will hurt. You will hurt like you don't want to hurt. You will hurt so bad, you will certainly have to drink again to maintain your sanity, if nothing else. And a lot of people do that. A lot of people come to Alcoholics Anonymous and they never ever get into Alcoholics Anonymous. They just become part of the passing parade. And some of them stay sober a long time. You know, step 1 was powerlessness. Step 2 was a power that I could rely upon to not have to drink today. Okay, well, I know. I've got a choice now. I've got like a knowledge of what's wrong with me and a knowledge about what to do about it. Okay, step 3. Made a decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I've understood God. Wow, that's not so hard. I know how to make a decision. I decided to come here to Lincoln. I live in Los Angeles. I made a decision to, wear this shirt. made a decision to have some of that beautiful, what do you call it out there? What is that stuff we have? The what? Chili! Chili, no. Chili. I'll probably fart later on, though, you know. But I loved it. I make decisions all the time. Made a decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God as I've understood God. Step 3. Holy shit. Well, there's a lot of difference between believing in God and having faith and trust in God. I believe in God. Faith and trust in God. You ask a room full of maybe 100 people, do they believe in God? You'll probably get a 97 or 8%, positive answer. You ask that same 100 people if they have faith and trust in God, you probably get a lot less of percent. Faith, F-A-I-T-H, fear and insecurity, trust Him. Trust, C-R-U-S-T. Try relying upon step 3. Not just believing in it, relying upon it to run our life. Well, what does it actually mean? Make a decision. Okay, make a decision to turn my will and my life. Well, what is that? What is my will and my life? Well, I went round asking people, what is your will and your life? People didn't know. In Alcoholics Anonymous, they didn't know simple, basic things. People didn't know what it was about and they made them alcoholic. They didn't understand what powerless was. They didn't understand the concept of insanity. They didn't understand simple, basic things. What's my will and my life? I went round asking and eventually I found the winners that taught me. Gradually. My will was my thinking, my life was my actions. My will was my thinking, my life was my actions. My thinking and my actions. Well, guess what? The disease lays mainly in my mind. What I do with my mind is think. Well, I can't rely on that, can I? Because there's a good chance that's going to be disease, isn't it? My actions, I'm a liar, a cheat and a thief. All my life I've been in trouble. I've been incarcerated in all kinds of institutions as a result of my actions. I've got my will and my life. It's no good, my will and my life. But what is that? My will and my thinking, my life is my actions. But it's everything I have done, am doing and will do, past, present and future, everything I wish I was doing, hope I'll do, and wish I was doing, was my actions. Everything I have done, am doing and will do, everything I wish I was doing, hope I was doing and wish I was doing. So past, present and future, so that I can live in the now. N-O-W, no other way, because I'm new, N-E-W, nothing else worked. I'm a newcomer, N-E-W-C-O-M-E-R. Nothing else worked, completely out of manageability and to recovery. Wow. My will is my thinking, my life is my actions. Everything I have done, am doing and will do, everything I wish I'd done, would like to be doing and hope I'll do. Past, present and future, so that I can live in the now. I can't live in the now if I've got guilt, shame and remorse from yesterday and fear, worry and anxiety about tomorrow. Because I've got to live in the now, but I can't if I've got guilt, shame, remorse, fear, worry and anxiety. So I'm going to turn all this over to the care of God, as I've understood God. And if my understanding in the beginning was the group and AA as a whole, because I'd long ago given up on that belief that I was raised in, but I could see the benefit of good orderly direction, group of drunks. I could go on dreaming, and today I believe in Gus, G-U-S, the guy upstairs, and if I turn my will and my life over to you, help me, teach me, show me, I'll come and be a small part, I'll do what you tell me, and I'll do simple things that I don't even know I'm learning. Now, in the beautiful book, Alcoholics Anonymous, after the ABCs, it says, being convinced we were at step 3. Well, what did that mean? It meant that we turned our will and our life over to God. Well, guess what? The step doesn't say that. The step doesn't say we turn our will and our life over to God. The step says we turn our will and our life over to the care of God, which is a totally different thing. My old white Jaguar sports car taught me that. For many years I had a white Jaguar sports car, 12-cylinder XJS. Great, why not? Living in Santa Monica, I'm a limey for Christ's sake, driving a Jaguar, what's wrong with that? But it's a limey piece of shit is what it is, and it breaks down. And when it used to break down, I would take it back to the mechanic I got it from and put it in his care for fixing and repair. But I didn't give him my car. It was my car. I owned it. I was responsible for it. DMV looked for me for their payment for it. But I put it in his care for fixing and repair. And that's what happened when I turned my life over to God. I turned my life over to God. He said, I gave it to you. What are you giving it back to me for? Because he didn't say that in the step. See, over to the care of God as I've understood God. And I've got an understanding today that I've understood. See, understood is a past tense word. It's a past tense word because the understanding comes from 1 and 2. I got Bill Wilson on the CD that he spoke at Long Beach in 1960 at the World Convention where he says he defined it in 1 and 2, so he named it in 3, and he named it God because he was okay with God. But if you're not okay with God, call it whatever the hell you are okay with. That's why this power works for all alcoholics. All alcoholics, no matter what you are. We don't care if you're atheist, agnostic, whatever you might be. If you be alcoholic, this power right here, right now, in this very room, will work for you. It's a strange and wonderful thing. Whatever you believe in, which is okay with us, has something in common which everybody else believes in. Strange that, isn't it? Look, I don't know how many people are here, a couple of hundred maybe. There may be a couple of hundred different points of view about a power greater than self. There may be a couple of hundred different beliefs on God. But we don't care. Because all the gods, no matter what gods you've got or what you believe in as a power greater than self, right here, right now, in this very room, all the gods have got at least one thing in common with all the other gods. You know what that is? All the gods send their alkies here. That's good shit, isn't it? All the gods send their alkies here because here's the power they provided for an alkie to not have to drink today. I like that. And I didn't know I was learning basic things like this. I didn't know, for example, that some rough, gruff old geezer got hold of me. I hadn't been around many minutes, and he said, come on, Mick, we're going to wash the cups. I said, I don't want to wash the cups. He said, we'll go and get drunk. I said, I don't want to get drunk. He said, well, come and wash the cups. Oh, shit. I go to this meeting, there's 200 hairy-ass mugs. You know, big chunky mugs, and they smoked in meetings in them days, and there was butts in there, and it was like ash and all that. Chunky mugs, not nice, delicate cups like we got out there. Big-ass mugs, 200 of the buggers. I'm up to my elbows in water, an hour after everybody's gone home, washing cups, clearing up the meeting. I felt like a right nerd, you know. Following day, he said, don't forget, Mick, he said, if they let us, we'll wash the cups at the meeting next week. I said, we just washed the cups last night. He said, they'll need washing again. I said, I don't even wash my own cups. He said, we'll go and get drunk. I said, I don't want to get drunk. He said, come and wash the cups. Yeah. Washing the bloody cups. I'm standing there, you know, like a right dick. Hour after every, I'm a superstar, washing bloody rotten cups. This went on for 4 months. 4 months. Every Tuesday night I'm washing 200 hairy-ass mugs, feeling like a right nerd. One day a dude comes and stands at the end of the sink. I said, what do you want? He said, sponsor said I've got to wash the cups. I said, what cups? He said, I guess them cups. I said, piss off and get your own cups. You ain't having my cups. These are my cups. Well, I didn't know, by the way, of Alcoholics Anonymous. You were teaching me how to become a giver and a contributor instead of a leech, sucking and leeching off of everybody and everything. By the way, if you want to play Stump the Drunk with me for about 15 minutes, you know, and you've got a question that you want some clarity, I'll be delighted. I love playing Stump the Drunk if you've got questions, and I'll do my best to answer them. And if I ain't got an answer for you, I'll double talk you into thinking I do. But, you know, I didn't know that I was becoming a small part of this great whole, and I love that, folks. I absolutely love being a small part of a great whole. You know, and I never brought that in here with me. I swear to God I didn't. I knew nothing about nothing. So the first 3 steps, really, very basically, and I've had to skim through some of the details because we're restricted on time here. But all it's really saying is I couldn't do it, he can do it, so I'm going to let him. And I love that. And you know, we grow in understanding, don't we? And we get to be able to keep this thing by giving it away. When I told my sponsor, powerless? I'm not powerless. I've got so much bloody power over alcohol, I don't know what to do with it. What shall I do with all this power over alcohol? He said, give it away. Go up there to Lincoln, Nebraska, give it to them. Don't worry, they won't want it. You know, I get a lot of juice and I get a lot of rah-rah. I've only been here an afternoon. I came in with Carl and Steve here. We've had a delightful little time, and a couple of people said I saved their life. Well, it's all right them saying it as long as I don't believe it. People say shit like that. We all know who saves the lives around here. If you want to give me the credit, I'll take it. Yeah. I was just told that I was a celebrity in Alcoholics Anonymous by 2 celebrities. I was over in San Fernando Valley doing a bit of business. I don't live there anymore, but I was in the neighbourhood, decided to go to the old home group. I got sober many years ago. Went to the meeting, great meeting, still a good meeting, even though I don't go there anymore. Came out of the meeting, 2 Celebrity Academy Award-winning actresses standing outside, known them a long time, active members of Alcoholics Anonymous. Said, Mick, good to see you. I haven't seen you for a while. I said, yeah, good to see you too. Don't live in the neighbourhood anymore. Thought I'd come and visit the old home group, see how you're all doing. Glad to see you meeting's doing good. One of them said, Mick, I didn't realise what a celebrity you've become in Alcoholics Anonymous. I said, what do you mean? She said, you're like this guru type dude, goes around everywhere, everybody knows you, speaking everywhere. You're like this AA celebrity. I said, what are you talking about? She said, I'm making a movie in New York. She said, and I went to 2 meetings in New York, and in both the meetings, they quoted you, mentioned you by name. You're like this AA celebrity. I said, yeah, bloody big deal, a celebrity in an anonymous program. I said, no, you're a celebrity. I'm just a clean and sober member, a small part of a great whole. And I love that. I absolutely love that. And we yes, it is all about elimination of our drinking, and that's the number 1 priority. We must remain sober. Without that, nothing counts. But it ain't all there is. When people say, I'm sober today, all we got is today, I say, well, then say at the beginning then. That's what the beautiful book says. It says elimination of our drinking is but the beginning. A far greater demonstration of our principles lies before us in our respective homes, occupations and affairs. So if all you want to do is be sober today, don't chain yourself to a tree. It won't work, but you'll be tied for first place in AA. Don't stay at the beginning, I don't care. But we don't. We get to apply these principles to all our affairs. And we do like those affairs, don't we? Yeah. I've seen some people vamping around here today with those affairs going on. Yeah. We're not very good at them, but we don't give them up. I wrote the word for relationships. RELATIONSHIP. Really exciting love affair turns into outrageous nightmare. Sobriety hangs in peril. You get it? You dig that? But we learn to apply these principles to our affairs. I know perfect. I'm not the same as you. I'm not even the same person who came in here myself. But I do recognise the benefits of Alcoholics Anonymous. This beautiful, wonderful book, Alcoholics Anonymous, with our program in it. You know, we do these little talks, and after the meeting, it's customary, people line up and thank you. A couple of things where I ask you about whether this thing works or not. I was just in the UK. I did a talk and told stories similar to what I just said now. At the end of the meeting, I saw this lady approaching me. I watched her as she came up. Little fat, black, gay, feminine, foreign female. And she was clutching a beautiful book, Alcoholics Anonymous, like this. And she came right up to me. And in that strange way she spoke, she said, "You don't still hate people, do you?" And I asked her, "How long are you sober, love?" She said, 32 days. And she was on fire. I said, "Give me that book, love." And I took her book and I wrote in her book, "Lots and lots and lots of love. Keep coming back." And she clutched her book close to her chest and went waddling off back to Africa or wherever she came from. Same thing happened with my mum. My mum don't laugh at my shit. Every year I used to go out with my mum, see my mum. First thing I do, go round her house, knock her up, tell her, "Mum, I'm 32 years sober." She says, "So is the cat." She don't give me a pat on the back for not doing something I shouldn't have done anyway. She says, "I'm busy, I'm going to bingo." But she passed just recently. My 3 sisters were sitting round the bed. Mum was laying back, she was going in and out of a coma. They tell me that they didn't know when she was going to pass. They said that they were sitting there and Mum suddenly sat up. She had a big grin on her face. They said, "Mum, are you okay? Do you need something? Can we help you?" We thought the time had come. And she said, "Mickey's doing good in AA in America." How does a guy like me come out of a nut ward for the criminally insane put a smile on an old lady's face as she goes to meet her maker? How does that happen? Here, right here is how it happened, right here in Alcoholics Anonymous. Why wouldn't I stick with you? I ain't going nowhere. If you're interested, my telephone number is 818 area code, "Are you sober?" 818 RU, like Toys R Us, SOBER. 818, not 800, you cheap bastards. 818. 818 area code RUSOBER. And I love hearing from you. Namaste. I have to leave.